Okay, I'd like to call the May 5th Board of Legislators meeting to order. And first, I will read the meeting preamble, which is the meeting is being conducted under extraordinary circumstances of a public health emergency and under the Governor of New York State's Executive Order 202.1 without permitting public in-person access to the meeting, authorizing the meeting to be held partially or completely with members appearing by remote conference call or similar service.
Someone wants to, somebody's joining in. Somebody else? I thought everybody was on. Okay.
And the meeting is being live streamed via the web and recorded, including the participation of the members appearing by remote link. So, having said that, we will do roll call of members.
Legislator Nabawanek?
Here.
McBride?
Here.
Grant? Monticelli? Cantwell?
Here.
Heck? Maxon?
Here.
Ferris?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Drake?
Here.
Jarrow?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Doldo? Gray?
Here.
All present.
Here.
Before we go any further, obviously, everybody's well aware that we lost one of our dear friends and a member of the legislature, and Carolyn Fitzpatrick. She was a 20-year member, I believe, 20-year member of the board, 5-year chairman of the chairperson of the board, and she was an excellent community servant. So she served her constituents well. She served this county well. She served the members of the legislature as our chairperson very well and represented us well in the community. So without further ado, I'd ask you all to take a moment of silence and just bow your heads in memory of Carolyn D. Fitzpatrick. Thank you. Okay. Reading of the minutes of the last session. Does anybody have a desire to have those read? If not, is there any additions, deletions, or corrections? Hearing none, then they'll stand as presented. Presentations of petitions, notices, and communications.
We have one written communication I'll advise you of, and then we have a informal presentation to make with our public health director. We're in receipt of a letter of condolences from Ruth Doyle, County Administrator for St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators, on behalf of Joe and all the other legislators with regards to the passing of Legislator Fitzpatrick.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll go on to the presentation by our Public Health Director, Ginger Hall. And I'll preface that by saying she's doing an absolutely fantastic job. Her and her department down there, they have led us through very troubled waters, as you are all very well aware of, what we've been through in the last perhaps 6 weeks, maybe more. I don't know. Time flies when we're having so much fun. I can't say they're having that much fun, but in any event, we've had a very challenging situation. The public health director and every member of that department have risen to the occasion, and to the other people that have gone down and helped that department have rose to that occasion. They have essentially maintained what we had hoped for when we started off, and that was to flatten the curve, which would be to slow the spread and to make sure that if there's any healthcare capacity that's required out there, that they need matched up with the ability to provide that service. So They have done that. They will continue to be our backbone, frankly, as we move forward in this next phase, which will be the opening, because everything will be done as a backdrop to what's being done at public health. Our reopening is critical to our economy, but if we don't do it correctly, it will also be a cannonball to our economy. So we have to move forward. We have to make smart decisions. We have to make sure that the public knows that we're looking at healthcare metrics out there, and that we're collecting data and that we're moving forward. Flattening the curve only means that we have slowed the spread. It does not mean that we have eliminated the virus. It still remains present out there. It's still highly contagious. There's still no medication or vaccination for it. So having said that, critical what they're going to do in the opening process, because it would be a tragedy if we open and we take a business that has now, at this point in time, idling cost, and then we go in another couple of weeks, and a business goes to operation cost, and they have no customers, because the customers and the public doesn't feel safe out there. Now they have full-blown operational cost and no customers, and that will be nothing but a race to the bottom. So we will proceed forward with our opening process and do it with our public health that has had our back through this whole thing, and they will continue to have our back, and will work against the healthcare metrics. So with that, I'm going to slip out of the way, and Ginger's going to slide in.
Okay, good evening. This has been a very challenging and stressful time, and we would not as a department have survived had there not been the support from everyone. Several departments, county admin, IT, HR, buildings and ground employment training have provided support and employees that were able to get us through this very difficult time. So our current information, our total test at this time, and this is our first test, was done on March 5th. We have done 1,687 tests. The tests are based on a screening process, and if the individuals qualify for that screening. It is being completed at the Drive Up, at Samaritan, primary care physicians, EDs, and the urgent cares. We've had 62 positives, which is 3.6% of our tested individuals. Currently, we have 6 in mandatory isolation, means they are positive cases. We have 1 currently hospitalized. We have had 8. 1 was on a ventilator and discharged and doing well. So we have a 13% rate for hospitalizations from our positive. 89 have recovered, which is 55. Our negative test is at 1,625, and we have a 96.4% negative of our total test. We have seen increased testing because the elective surgery has started with the hospitals, so we have seen increased testing, and the process is that they have to have a COVID-19 test and be negative before they can have a procedure. We've had approximately 9 households out of our positive cases where there's been 2 or more cases in that household. The symptoms have varied from being very ill to only losing the ability to taste or smell. We've talked with many individuals, and some have been very ill and they have tested negative. We've been completing contact tracing for years with all of our communicable diseases, and that includes investigating where the positive individual has been, their contacts outside and within their home. This provides us with the potential exposed individuals for mandatory quarantine. Our first case was actually on March 17th. Since the last time I presented to the board, it was only a couple months ago, but it actually feels like several years. It's been a very busy time. We have done social media outreach. Faith and Lisa have been doing Facebook Live 2 to 3 times a week. We've done TV, radio interviews. We have done contact tracing on every positive case. We've called every positive case via video chat daily while they're on their mandatory isolation. We have contacted every mandatory quarantine individual daily until their 14 days each one has been completed. We are doing isolation and mandatory quarantine orders on every patient. And we're maintaining a spreadsheet so that we have tracking of all individuals that were positive on mandatory quarantine as a contact, and all those negatives. Every negative test individual has been called as well. This is very different than other communicable diseases. We never see the negatives, but with COVID-19, we get all positive and all negatives, and so we are responsible for calling those negative results to the individuals. We've worked with community agencies and organizations to facilitate the social distancing practice, disinfecting procedures. We participate at least on 10 webinar telephone conferences per week, receiving updated guidance and further regulations. Currently, we are working with the 6 other counties in our region for the reopening. We started a weekly director's call last week. There is also going to be educational calls with our health promotion for those same counties so that we provide the same message across the region. Our concern is that the residents will assume once we start the reopening process that social distancing and wearing a mask are no longer needed. Social distancing and wearing a mask have mitigated transmission and are key in managing our infection rate and our hospital rate, which is part of the reopening process. We cannot lose this very valuable process, and it's going to be key to decreasing our transmission. Currently, we are working with the nursing homes and assisted living facilities so that there is testing, COVID-19 testing on all residents and employees. We work with the state health department to obtain the kits, the PPE, and coordinate the facilitate the facilities completing the testing to be sent to the state lab. Last night, we received about 1/3 of the PPE that is going to be needed for that testing to be completed, and the testing will be starting next week. And so we're working very closely with those facilities. Again, we accomplished this with all the support of everyone, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Yeah, any questions? Ms. Peck?
I have a question after.
Hi. Thank you very much for all of your work and efforts, Ginger. One question I do have with sampling and testing. So there's been some states and locales that have been doing some testing on old samples that they may have had. I think maybe California showed that they actually had a case that was thought to be something else, had an unknown illness, and then they went back and tested whatever evidence they had to find that it was actually an earlier COVID case that they were just unawares of. What kind of sampling did they have that they're going back to be able to use to determine that? And is there any such cases that our local hospitals should be going back to re-examine?
So some of the testing is the antibody testing. They go back to see if someone has an immunity level because they've had the COVID-19 disease in the past, or the virus. The state has done some sampling in different areas. They did that here probably a week and a half ago or a little longer. That is something that will be coming to all the counties, but at this time, there's not a robust antibody testing process.
Mr. Namwanik?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ginger, thank you for everything you've done, and everybody down there at Public Health. It's been a lot of long days, but we all appreciate it, and thank you for your efforts. Just a question about quarantining going forward, and what the practice has been in the past. There's a lot of businesses, as this gets relaxed a little bit more, say somebody in any of these businesses tests positive, and say they have like 9 or 10 employees. What's going to happen in those situations? They've been in contact with other people. Are they going to need to be tested? Are they going to shut the businesses down? What is the policy going forward?
So the positive case would be isolated for a minimum of 7 days. All the contacts, that'd be the close contacts, are quarantined for 14 days. Now that depends on the type of worker. Healthcare workers have a little bit of a different rule where they can return to work, but then must, have the mask, have everything protection-wise, and then they must quarantine when they return home or isolate. And it depends if it's an essential worker. Right now, everything we have for guidelines is healthcare workers and essential workers, as to whether they can work, but then must quarantine immediately after their work hours.
There's no guidelines yet, in terms of what's going to happen to business.
Correct.
There was previous to this, it was in the schools, it was shut down for 24 hours and disinfect, but we have no guidance. I'll add that to my 20 questions that I just sent out. We have no guidance on that right now, Jimmy. But
Okay,
it's a good question. I'll ask, though.
thank you.
Yep. Further? Hearing none? Okay.
Thank
you,
you
Jimmy.
very much, Jim.
Go ahead. Who? Phil?
It's Anthony.
Anthony? Got it.
Yep. Just a quick question. As these businesses are allowed to open, is one of the requirements for them going to be suggested that they wear masks, or when they open, is that not going to be necessary at the time?
That's a requirement right now. That's a requirement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
What's that?
I agree.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Where am I here? All righty. Reports of county officers and others.
We have a report from the county treasurer on investments in cash on hand. We also have a report from the county administrator on budget transfers for the prior month.
Okay. All of that's been emailed.
Yes.
Okay, correct. Okay, local laws, resolutions, and motions. Okay, so we need a motion and a second to waive the standing rules 354160 to permit the introduction, the consideration of resolutions number 115 through 124, which have not gone through the jurisdiction.
Seconded.
Did I get a motion?
Ferris, second. Ferris?
Well, we need a motion before we can get a second. You want to?
I moved it.
Move it?
I
Mike
did.
did. Okay,
Mike
thank you, Mike.
Monticelli moved it first.
Mike Monticelli, and second by Mr. Ferris. All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want?
Aye.
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 Sounds good.
It's like a version of the Waltons. Okay.
What's the Waltons, Scott?
Pardon? What's that?
What's the Waltons?
The Waltons?
Oh, uh-oh, showing your age, or ours.
Waltons are.
Yeah.
Good night, John Boy. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so, with that said, what we'll do is we'll take a motion in a second, to introduce the resolutions number, actually,
115 to 124. Yeah.
It'll be 114, isn't it?
yeah,
114.
so we need to waive the rules in 114 too, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I need
You didn't
to
say it.
amend, hold on, let me back up.
Oh,
I need to amend, the resolution on waiving the rules, to go from 114 to 124.
I agree.
Mr. Monticelli, you moved it, would you amend it?
I would
you
gladly
permit the-
amend it.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Ferris? Mr. Ferris,
I
you
would
permit
gladly
it?
second it.
Okay, so, all in favor of amending that that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay,
Aye.
motion's amended.
Got it.
All righty, now, in a block, we will, move the resolutions number 114 through 124, same as we did in the last meeting. So if I can have a motion to entertain all those resolutions?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Reed, second?
I'll second it.
Who is that? Who
Dan.
seconded it? Dan, thank you. Okay, any discussion? Oh,
Yes.
actually,
Well, we'll go.
Yeah, we're gonna go through each one. Okay, so we'll start with resolution, 114.
The first resolution this evening is approving mortgage tax report.
Discussion? None? Okay, 115.
Authorizing agreements with the Federal Aviation Administration, McFarland Johnson Incorporated, Reifenberg Construction in relation to the Watertown International Airport runway 725 and intersection rehabilitation construction related seeker determination thereto and amending the 2020 county budget and capital plan.
Discussion on 115? Hearing none. 116.
Amending the 2020 county budget to reappropriate funding from the New York State Department of Transportation for New York statewide opportunities for airport revitalization marketing grant.
Discussion on 116? None. 117.
Authorizing agreements with the Federal Aviation Administration, Farland Johnson Incorporated, in relation to the Watertown International Airport runway 28 medium intensity approach lighting system with runway alignment indicator lights related to state environmental quality review determination thereto and amending the 2020 budget and capital plan.
Discussion on resolution number 117. Hearing none. Resolution number 118.
Authorizing agreements with the Federal Aviation Administration, McFarland Johnson Incorporated, to the Watertown International Airport drainage study related to seeker determination thereto and amending the 2020 county budget and capital plan.
Discussion on 118. None. 119, please.
Authorizing agreement for an additional allocation for the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee's Stop DWI Crackdown Enforcement Grant and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion on 119.
Of course. Yeah, I'd like to remove that from the group so I can vote against it without voting with against the rest of them.
Duly noted. We will do that. Okay. Any further discussion on 119?
Yeah, I had a quick question on that. This is Dan. Part of
Go
that
ahead.
funding, it said would go to New York State Park Police. If the parks aren't
Correct.
open, does that get distributed otherwise?
Mike, I'm not, yes, it will, to the park police, yes, it will be distributed to the park police.
Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
Yeah, the parks are closed, but I believe the police, the operations are still functioning. So, yes.
Which is a very appropriate question, Dan. And what are they going to be doing with that money? They're going to be, since they don't have anything else to do, what are they going to be doing with it? And they're going to be going out, setting up roadblocks and all sorts of other stupid stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
I guess my question, does the park police have jurisdiction outside of New York State Park? Are they same as a state police officer, more or less?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. Yep.
Okay.
Further discussion on 119? None? 120.
Number 120, accepting new COVID-19 local health department allocation funding and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion on 120. Okay. 121.
Accepting funding from CARES Provider Relief Fund and amending the 2020 county budget in relation thereto.
Discussion on 121, please. None? Okay. 122.
Appointing a successor to District 12 legislator.
Discussion on 122. Done? 123.
Approving a line of credit for the Thousand Islands Bridge Authority.
Discussion on 123. Done. 124.
Authorizing a memorandum of agreement with Jefferson Local of the Civil Service Employees Association regarding voluntary furlough program.
Discussion on 124.
Can you
Yes,
offer
I'd
a
like
few
you to
more
remove that,
details?
because I'll be voting no on that.
Oh, hold on. Bobby Ferris, Legislator Ferris first, please, then Legislator
Yeah.
Peck.
Yeah, as I made a note on the email that.
You gotta do something. We're not getting any volume on you, Bobby.
Hang on. Let me try something different for you real quick. Hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Yep.
Okay. As I discussed, or as I made note in the email.
We just lost you again.
Well, it's coming in.
Bobby,
and out.
can't hear you.
That's not a bad thing, Scott.
All righty, you figure that out, Bobby. We'll go to Mr. Peck. We'll be back to you, Bobby. Figure your sound out.
It was just a question of details. I think, I understand the resolution is just, vague. So, I mean, how many employees we potentially talking about? Obviously,
Not
the
a
duration's
perfect
through
lead in.
July,
We will
so-
do an outline for you. For
Thank
everybody.
you.
Here we are.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? We were tasked, so county administration identified basically from what other counties were doing, both mandatory and voluntary furlough programs. And we were asked, Sarah Baldwin, myself, and John Stabik from the county attorney's office to put together an agreement that we could come to with CSDA, the largest union, and really the only union involved because the other unions are essential staff. And that was about a week ago, and I apologize for you not having that in front of you because at about 4:45, we finally reached an agreement. So we have the agreement. It isn't signed yet. That's obviously what you're going to authorize, hopefully, to allow the chairman to sign that, and then we'll sign it all tomorrow. But basically, it's a purely voluntary program that employees will send an election form in, and the department head will basically tell us whether they can spare that employee for a minimum of 30 days. But it's going to start May 18th and run until July 31st. Based on the 50% of their average salary for unemployment insurance they'd be eligible for, along with the $600 stimulus from the CARES Act. And we'll continue their health insurance during the furlough period until, as long as they pay for their biweekly premium. So they'll still have their contractual biweekly pay premium to mail in. So that's pretty much the brief description of it. Do you have any questions?
So is a particular target number that administration is looking for budgetarily, or is this, or as far as department heads, they're the ones who give the ultimate decision on how many people they can really lose and still manage?
That's absolutely correct. What will happen, it's a voluntary program, so we will, starting tomorrow, through HR, do the outreach to all eligible employees. They will make a determination if they want to voluntarily do this furlough or not. And from that, on a department-by-department basis, depending on the level of activity moving forward that those departments want to have, they will let us know 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, whatever the numbers become. And then we will then implement the program as Val said, as of the 18th. Looking at what we hope to gain, we're anticipating in the range of $1 million plus that will be saved over the roughly 75, 80-day time period.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for Val.
Go ahead, Mr. Nimoy.
Val, just a quick question about the health insurance. You said the employees are responsible for their portion. How is that being, or are they writing checks, or how is that going to be done? Can you explain that?
Yes, they'll be notified. Those that are approved for the furlough will be notified of what they need to mail in, and that'll be individualized by the employee, whether they have health benefits, dental benefits, and they will mail those in.
Okay.
We do have a clause in the MOA that protects us that if they don't mail it in, we're not going to cancel their health insurance. We'll take from their paycheck when they return.
So,
Presently, there are 9 counties that have already approved and have maybe even implemented a very similar program. Among them would be Franklin County and Clinton County to our east. There are 3 counties that are considering, including ourselves, as of today or tomorrow, the same type of action. I believe Lewis County is in that group as well. So the number of counties in terms of taking on this type of approach is growing daily. And again, a lot of that has to do because of the implementation of the stimulus package that allows for this type of a program to move forward so that there's a direct cost savings to the county that in theory can be saved and passed forward into next year or frankly into the remainder of this year, depending how tough the situation becomes. The employees are guaranteed the opportunity to come back as of the 1st of August, but whether or not come the fall and into next year, positions might be eliminated or not is a totally different question having nothing to do with this exercise one way or the other. Certainly, we're hoping not to see that happen, but that's not a guarantee, and the union is aware of that situation.
Further questions?
I have a question, Scott.
Yeah, go ahead.
How does retirement work, retirement credit?
Good question, Al. That's in the MOA because that's something that we can't negotiate. They will not receive retirement credit the time that they're furloughed. So they're not receiving pay from us, and the retirement system basically rules on that. They say that we cannot report time or wages because we're not paying the employee and they're not serving, they're not here. So they won't, and it's in the MOA and it's explained to the employee that they will not receive, and it could affect their final average salaries.
Okay, thank you, Val.
Or they extend for 3 months or something.
Right, it would only affect someone that's
If they're
their last 3 years of employment.
Correct.
last 3 years, right.
Hey, Scott?
Further
can you hear me?
questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Chairman, I have a
Mr. Ferris.
question.
Yeah.
Yep,
I'm gonna
Mr.
be-
Ferris and Mr. Monticelli, and we can barely hear you still, Bobby.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is when it comes to this, I'm gonna be voting no on it. So if you leave it in the group, just mark me as a no vote.
Well, okay, we'll have to pull it out then.
Pull it out?
Okay, pull it out. Okay. Mr. Monticelli, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The question's for Director Nugent. Okay, so a person takes basically a month where they're not in the receiving retirement credit. How about their placement within the union in terms of seniority? How would that affect that? In other words, could somebody who started a month after the person who just took a month off all of a sudden be able to bump that person for their job?
Another good question. No, seniority is protected in the agreement, but it's also in our collective bargaining agreement that anything less than a 3-month leave of absence, which this would be, does not affect your seniority, and it does not affect civil service seniority either. It doesn't affect their in-house seniority or their civil service layoff protections.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Scott. It's Anthony.
Yep, Mr. Dolgo.
Thank you. So, what specific departments is this going to entail is one of my questions.
I can tell you more readily who it will not involve. So it will not involve public health. The sheriff's department, other than the clerical staff, will be offered. It will not involve the insurance department.
Essentially, when we went through this exercise now 6-7 weeks ago to downsize to 50%, what we had to do was identify different departments that are providing critical service, and what the Valley just identified is essentially that. But an example would also be like the transfer station operation with solid waste and recycling. That's also viewed as an essential service. But for the most part, all other departments, although that doesn't mean everybody in the department, but all other departments might see a few folks that would volunteer for a furlough, that the department head would be willing to extend that opportunity.
Well, I guess part of my thoughts is these departments that may take it or people that may take it. I don't know when government's going to come back online, but my concern is when we start to wrap things up and get back busy, are we going to have enough staff available to take care of the public?
So the initial furlough period is 30 days. So when even though the complete furlough period, possibility of furlough is May 18th to July 31st, the initial is 30 days. So what I'm going to be saying to department heads is, who can you spare for a minimum of 30 days? So that gives us time. We can call it after the 30 days. We can bring people back as we see that is needed.
Okay, so
Or we
based
can
on,
decide to extend them out.
right, yeah, my only concern is if we do open up a department and they need more staff, and so you're saying we can't bring these people back any earlier than 30 days if they're needed, if something happens?
Correct. If the department head will be told, basically, do not approve this person if you feel you cannot spare them for the minimum of 30 days.
Okay,
And
so
on
the
a
other,
broader,
go ahead, Bob.
Anthony, or for all the board members, on a broader scale, keep in mind that likely in another week, we will see the first fallout of whatever the state is going to contribute in terms of anticipated revenue or not. And there'll be 3 other cycles in the course of the year. So to some extent, the level of service provided, and we will provide it across the board, but the specific level may be downsized this year, which is one of the reasons we're going through this exercise, because there may not be sufficient revenues into the rest of 2020. So it's going to be very much a balancing act, which is another reason why we want to have 30 days to see how it works out. And beyond that, we'll adjust accordingly. But it's definitely going to be a balancing act for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and so, and to that end, also, a lot of the work has been put on hold around in different departments. So that some of that work will continue to be put on hold. It'll just be continued to be in the pause mode, so to speak. So it's just, we're just going to back up the work for a little bit longer in order to, for budgetary purposes, to try to lessen the expense of this operation.
And I would also
understand
remind
that.
everybody that because, what?
Go ahead,
Go
Dan.
ahead, Bob. No, that's okay, go ahead.
No, my only other point was going to be that even though we've been down 50%, a number of employees have been working from home. So even though you don't physically see them in the office, other work is being done on a regular basis.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the staff is going to be available when the public starts to go back to work if they're needed at the county level for some reason or other. That's one of my concerns. The other concern is with all the hassle we've had with New York State not being the best for taking care of business, you have a lot of complaints on people collecting unemployment. So if we furlough these people, are they going to be in the same boat as everybody else, still waiting and not getting any answers out of New York State, or have not received checks yet?
It is a possibility. That's not anything that we guarantee. We're hearing different out there. We're hearing different stories. Most people, if it's non-contested and it's a normal employment situation where it's not a part-time or a contracting type employee or their own business, that it's happening quite quickly. But we're not guaranteeing that. There is a provision in the MOA that we bring you back to work if you're denied the unemployment claims. But I do want to mention one other aspect just quickly about this. When we hit May 18th, if we are back, if we have more staff that were allowed to come back into the office, we do have several federal laws and state laws that now that the schools have announced that they're closed till the end of the year, we may have several employees that will take advantage of this furlough because otherwise they would have to go under one of those acts. Because we're no longer going to be paying people to be home with their kids if they have school-age children. So they might take advantage of this, and we won't still be paying them, because under the federal Emergency Family Leave Act, they get up to 12 weeks of pay that we have to pay. And then there's, there's New York State laws as well. So we're hoping, that this might put some of those folks at ease that they'll be on this furlough versus taking one of those other options.
Okay, yeah, my concern, like I said, again, is New York State and these people that aren't getting money now, and then we're gonna have the same problem possibly with our employees, and it's just going to compound everything, and that's where I have a big concern, is boils down to money and people being able to pay their bills and feed their families, and if somebody gets in a situation, then what are we going to do? Can they change
I've
their
heard-
mind and say, I'm not getting paid, I can't wait anymore, bills are getting behind, I know I agreed to furlough, can I come back?
I understand. That is built into there's provisions for that for them to come back as well in the agreement.
Sooner than the 30 days.
Well, if they're denied for unemployment, yes. And if they're
Okay.
not getting work, we haven't heard that from other counties. So Clinton's about 2 weeks into it now, and I talked to the personnel director up there. She indicated that it went pretty seamlessly for those that applied for the unemployment so far. But I'm sure there's been a couple. There always will be a couple that we'll have to deal with.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
Yes, Scott, me. Pat.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep, Legislator
Um,
Gerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My problem with this is public perception more than anything. As we hopefully turn a corner and start a reopening process, that we are now furloughing county employees right as we are trying to get this thing back up and running. I think it's a show that maybe things are not as they should be, which obviously they're not in a lot of ways. But I think that supports the perception that there are things, there are deeper causations and deeper problems with society as a whole. If a county is furloughing a good portion of their employees. So that's a big concern I have on this whole thing.
It's strictly budgetary move. We'll respond to that accordingly. Legislator Gerald, we'll respond accordingly. It's strictly a budgetary move. So, but I totally understand.
And it's not
Yep.
mandated for, some counties went the route of either layoffs or mandating the furloughs. They identified the positions. This is more of a voluntary.
Right. Now, on the other side, on the flip side of what you're looking at is the view of the optics, so to speak. That the public health numbers will speak for themselves. That, as we start going through the reopening phase, the data that we're going to be required to collect and report and show will speak for itself. So it'll clearly demonstrate that one is a budgetary move and the other is, the other move to reopen is being supported by the health matrix that's being created. So.
Okay, well, and that's a great answer for that, and I appreciate it. But another issue that I have with perception then going forward, because you have addressed the initial concern, but the second concern is if we can perform government without these people, then why did we have the people at the beginning? So
right.
that is the next logical step of the perception or optics
right.
issue that you addressed.
That is correct. Well, essentially now a lot of the work is just not being conducted. Right. There is a certain portion of it that's being conducted, whatever can be done from home, but a lot of the work is not being conducted. We will continue to elongate that process and conduct, as we start to open, we'll just conduct limited we'll increase incrementally the amount of work that's being conducted. But that doesn't say that there's not work to be done out there. It's just being put on hold for a little bit longer. And it's a measure that we have to, because if we don't, then the alternatives are, probably less appealing. And then you're going to run right up against, Legislator Dolo's concern, which is going to be service to the public, which nobody can guarantee that won't be the situation anyhow down the road. But, you know, in the short term, the matter is to try to put a tourniquet on the situation as much as possible. And keep in mind that nobody knows the magnitude of the situation because we're still in it. And, you know, certainly we won't even know the magnitude until we're well into the opening of this process. And then we start to see what the marketplace is like out there and to see, you know, what kind of revenues start coming back. But even given that, you know, this state aid number, the state aid on an annual basis to us is about 23 million, 23 million. And now we don't know the exact formula, but you know, they're almost assured that they're going to nick it the first time. So we have to make some adjustments budgetarily.
And in this particular case, bottom line is it really became a win-win in terms of the employees who are volunteering, because likely there may be some glitches as it relates to claims and things, but overall, they're going to be essentially made whole and they'll be home. There will be some less services. They're coming back. So it's an okay situation as opposed to what we might have faced, which would have been just blanket and some kind of number layoffs. It's a balancing act. These are extreme times. The revenues aren't going to be coming in. Not only are we looking about what we're doing this year, but preparing ourselves for next year, and we want to minimize that negative impact on the revenue. So this is one of many tools that is available to us. We don't take this approach lightly. It was an extremely well-vetted process before we even got to this point to see if it really made sense. And it does make sense financially, and we're not hurting these employees along the way. So it seems like, from a public policy standpoint, a very appropriate step to take, but it's not an easy step, and that's recognized.
But also remember that our requirements are choices to somewhat work.
Can you use the microphone?
But our requirements are less too. DSS right now, the state has waived an awful lot of their regular requirements. And I expect they won't have them, boom, hit us all on May 18th either.
Right.
Slowly bring them back in, which will require more staff. That's although normal requirements come back.
In case you hadn't guessed, that was Sarah, and she's across the room. So this is a social distancing setup, except for she's encroaching me. So, further questions?
Just quickly, Scott, this is Dan. So this program's federally funded, not state funded, correct?
Define both. They're both. The unemployment is both. Part of the stimulus package and part of state unemployment.
Under state unemployment, the maximum coverage is $504 a week. The stimulus is adding $600 a week. What that kind of implies is for somebody with a salary mid 20,000, 26, 27,000, the 504 pretty well works. By us referencing a higher salary, it's inclusive of the $600 for, you know, on an annualized basis, that would get it to about a $54,000 a year package. We could be doing, in theory, we could be doing this package if there wasn't a stimulus package as well, but unfortunately in that case, the number of employees that would be impacted are very few.
Yep.
We would not have the bang for the buck that we're talking about right now.
This stimulus opened it up considerably.
Yes. And the stimulus expires July 31st.
Which, you know, the magnitude of what we're looking at has made it worth the exercise.
Scott?
Further questions? Yes.
I got a guy that's texting me. His mother and wife work there at the county, and he's asking me what's going on. And I said, he's nervous. I said, it's going to be voluntary. And he says, what if they don't get enough volunteers? Are they just going to say, okay, you're done?
No, strictly voluntary.
Strictly voluntary.
And the agreement reads it that way too, by the way.
Yep.
So the potential savings may not be as much as we appreciate or what we think we could get.
Correct. It's been very successful in other counties, and they've seen, greater numbers, then, they've had to turn people down.
Sure.
Because we do have, we have that ability to turn furloughed employees down if the department can't spare them. So, but they've had an excellent response so far.
Further questions? None? Okay, that's a wrap on 124.
Good. Thank you, Val.
Okay, thank you, Val.
Scott,
Speaking.
do we need to act on 122 before we vote on all of them?
We're good. Do we need to act on what?
No,
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 no.
no. So, yeah, we got it. She's an attendee in the audience,
So to speak, yes.
so to speak.
Electronic attendee.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we're gonna do a roll call vote. And our first roll call vote is gonna be on resolutions number 114 through 118. And then we're gonna jump to,
120?
120 to 123.
Correct.
So that's a roll call vote for that those two blocks of resolutions.
Okay, Legislator Reed,
Yes.
Ferris,
Yes.
Jero,
Yes.
Dodo,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Monticelli,
Yes.
Maxon,
Yes.
Nabawanic,
Yes.
Peck, John?
Yes.
Thank you. Grant,
Yes.
Johnson, Bill,
Yes.
Cantwell,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay. Resolution number 119, roll call vote, please.
Legislator Dodo,
Yes.
by the way, this is in regards to DWI.
Right, yeah, I'm sorry.
Jero,
No.
Drake,
Yes.
Maxon,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Peck,
No.
McBride,
No.
Nabawanic,
Yes.
Cantwell,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Monticelli,
Yes.
Ferris,
No.
Gray.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay. Resolution number 124. Call.
Legislator Jero,
No.
Ferris,
No.
Dodo,
Is this the one for I don't have my computer broke, I'm sorry.
Furlough, it's a furlough.
This is-
the furlough one.
Okay, thank you. No.
Peck,
Yes.
Cantwell,
Yes.
Maxon,
Yes.
Monticelli,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nabawanic,
Yes.
Drake,
Yes.
Gray.
Yes,
Motion carries.
okay. That concludes resolutions, motions, whatever, local law. Okay, last, is any other new business, but go, did somebody? So, but before we do that, I would, before I get to any questions or comments or anything, I'd like to introduce Well, she hasn't been sworn in yet, but, but in any event, the person you just selected to, replace, Carolyn in the seat, and that is Francie Clarko. I have known Francie for, gosh, I don't know, how many, several years now, right, Francie? Since 1980s. So, we have a common relationship in business. So, she has done a great job in our community. She is on several different boards that you all saw in her bio. She runs the D.L. Clarko Funeral Home. That's not a commercial. It's just pointing out what she does. Her father's a wonderful person too. So, and her mother was. She's a great community-spirited person. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Francie. If you want to say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. This is something I never thought I would ever do or never even had thought of, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Good, good. Anybody want to say hi to her?
Hi, Francie. Welcome.
Thank you, Anthony.
Appreciate you coming on the board. And I know Scott has sent you more flowers than he sent his own wife, but we won't hold that against him.
Congratulations, Francie.
Congratulations, Francie. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Great.
Thank you.
Francie, you get to sit next to me.
I heard that.
And me. Another
Give me
female.
candy bars.
Hey, Corey.
Hi, Francie. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Welcome aboard, Francie.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments that I can help anybody with? Hearing none?
I'll make the motion, Scott.
Make a motion to adjourn by Mr. Cantwell. Second?
I second.
Second, Mr. Maxon. All in favor, say aye.
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 Say goodbye.
Hi, goodbye.
Say goodbye.
Bye, Scott.
Have a good
Cheers.
evening. Stay safe.